Good night. Good night. Good night. Just give me 1 second. Let me get the camera right. Um, 1 second. Are you seeing me? Are you hearing me? Let me know if you can see me because I am having a bit of let me know if you can see me, hear me. Let me know if you can see me, hear me. Right. Are you hearing me? No. Are you hearing me? No. Are you hearing me? No. Are you seeing me? No. You know how technology works. Um, it's working till it's not working. But we're gonna get on the road very soon without further delay. This is Alternative Views streaming live tonight. As was advertised, the topic is the economics of crime and violence. The economics of crime and violence. Um, right. So how you know everything is well, everything is well. So with that being said, welcome to Alternative Views. Sorry for the delay and start. We had a technical glitch, but we do fix the well. Welcome to the program. My name is Kimar Stuart. I will be your guide to this evening as you guys know, camera looks nice this evening. The quality is clean, huh? Okay. Yes. So welcome to Alternative Views. So I am Stuart. We're streaming this evening from Bristol, Barbados, as we usually do. Then we start shooting our uh, live shows from the day. You definitely be in love. We're shooting locally, streaming live from Bristol, Barbados. And want to welcome you all, the patrons, supporters. You see, we had Nigel Carrington who was in very early. Said he's looking forward to a good show. Judith Ann Clark, good to see you, Judith Ann. It was nice seeing you last time at Roadside Parliament last Sunday. I think it was the one before that as well. Marcia, welcome. Peter King, hi Peter King, how are you? Uh, Peter King saying good afternoon, Barbados, good afternoon, Kimar, good afternoon to all of the members of the Coalition of the Righteous of Patrons. Let me know. Welcome to the show. Karen Williams, welcome. Isha Hardy, welcome to the show. And to be back, we should be up and running smoothly now in terms of audio and video. We are stable. It should be stable. So thank you. Asbra, welcome to Alternate Views. Well, to see how happy I am to see you. And to the 67 of you that are early, thank you very much. We're up at 7:14 p.m. this evening, Thursday, the 13th, June 2024. Welcome to the show. Uh, sorry, great. Welcome to the show. Um, Let us delve in. Yes, Tim Ward, thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much, guys, for the feedback. We are up and running very smooth right now. So, what are we here to discuss this evening? We are here to discuss the economics of crime. The economics of crime. Um, Many of you know, as of very recent, there has been a spate of violent activity in Barbados. And that violent activity definitely involves the use of guns and firearms. We even had some stabbings recently. And what we know as society, becoming very fearful of what is happening there in the country. Um, Many Barbadians alike who traverse the highways, the byways, and the roads are no longer feeling safe in their home. And tension in society is growing because of the ability of the citizens of the country to feel safe in their own home. So when a society is not feeling safe, then you have to deploy extra resources or state resources, extra taxation to go towards the problem of tackling crime in the society. Um, Barbados, as a country, has been seeing a surge in gun violence, has been seeing a surge in particularly murders and particularly murders with the use of firearm. So traditionally, Barbados has not been a society which was plagued by the use of firearms. However, we are seeing different cultures coming in to it. Um, gun violence had more association with Jamaica, uh, had more association with Trinidad. However, uh, today what we are seeing now is a surge in firearm-related crimes in Barbados, taking on characteristics that we used to see in other neighboring Caribbean islands. Even the Bahamas is seeing an upsurge in the use of murders and murders by the gun. Even in the Bahamas, the residents, the Bahamians, they are not feeling safe as well in their countries. So there's not only a problem akin to Barbados, but it is also a problem that is plaguing societies all around the world. But my notion is that because it is happening around the world, does not mean that we throw our hands in the air and we do nothing about it. So I should ask the question first. Do you, as alternate viewers, see a connection or a correlation between the Barbados economy, the prosperity of the Barbados economy, and crime? Do you see a connection between the performance of the Barbados economy, the general landscape, the economic environment, and crime? So that is the question I'm putting to the viewers tonight. So, do you see that connection? And part of the train of thought that we had from last week's show and the week show before that was a psychosocial analysis of the Barbados economy, where we examine the societal and more psychology of the economy, and we relate the early years of socialization, where a person, not just the male, because we have an increasing female participation in related activities. So, where a person finds himself, what was the word that I'm looking for, impacted in his early years, is a child's environment, or the environment that a child grew up in plays a huge role in understanding crime, right? Schooling also has an impact on the child. Healthcare also has an impact on crime as well. And family and societal structure is severely impacted by crime. So we for advertising purposes, we said the impact on society. Right? And I am seeking a quote by Dr. Law, and the quote goes something like this. It said, the darker side of me. The darker side of me. And we're discussing crime here and the impact on the Barbadian society. So don't forget to like the live, by the way. Don't forget to like, guys. Don't forget to share. The more view we have on here, the better. So far, we have 90 persons, 90 persons. So don't forget to like and share. Do not forget to like and share. And welcome all of those persons who welcome all of those persons. But since Square 4 is on tonight, Peter King is making some comments as well. But it's saying here at page 137 of the journey, we're just taking a quote here, we're not analyzing today. It says that sometimes our inner realities are dark and full of hopelessness and induce great fear and disillusionment. The memories of those hurtful moments in our past and the people who helped to create them, as well as our personal failures, all become part and parcel of these realities. Experience with neglect, abuse of all forms, and dreams, and missed opportunities, and other physical, emotional, and psychological, social, and spiritual wounds that all contribute to inner darkness. These inner realities bring a lot of anguish, of inner anguish to our world, often forcing us behind the mask we wear, and we lose confidence in ourselves and may become chronically dependent upon those who can become very controlling, manipulative, and abusive. There is also a disposition of persistent pessimism which causes us to constantly speak negative messages even to ourselves. In this state, it also becomes easier to surrender to our center, or surrender our center of control to others in exchange for achieving feelings of belonging and total acceptance. This darkness tends to stifle the real beauty of who we are and entices us to adopt habits and practices of denial. Able to deal with these unpleasant realities, many pretend to be whom they are not and continue to perpetuate an inner state of denial and self abuse. This constant and intense inner struggle pushes away many into a state of false pretense, where they feel compelled to hold onto the past and persistently relive the negative events that brought them to where they are. They become disconnected from all that is real about themselves and choose to live in the shadows of who try to define who they should be. All of us tend to journey with parts of our negative past and at times find it difficult to let go. Reasons largely unexplained, there seems to be some romantic affair with the hurtful and negative things in our past, as some even go as far as to constantly use these dark realities as the point of reference to explain why these things may not be going so well at their present stage of life. The past, though dark and painful for many, becomes a constant song and dance and often stifles the opportunities of the present and the hope and dreams for the future. Whether we like it or not, our past is up to us to deal with it and get on with the business of living productively. It is of no virtue to deny the darkness in our past. To do so will only mean that we'll be forced to mask ourselves and denied and be denied of the joys of knowing who we really are and all that we can become. Our darker side may include any number of negative experiences, personal life features, and as noted earlier, these experiences are often driven by toxic family relationships, personal romantic relationships, work life, lifestyle choices, and so on. Now, that quote by Dr. Law captures the essence of what I'm going to say tonight because the darker side in human beings, right? And the darker side, I mean, the side which is prone to allow us as human beings to engage in criminal activity. Uh, from one perspective, there's the spiritual element of it, which is going against the God or God, and our bodies would tell us or should be telling us if you're about to do something wrong. So I'm sure all of us on here, I'm still young, but we were all children. We were all children. And when we were about to do something, got this feeling or something came over us to say, well, you know you're about to do, but we still gonna do it anyway, right? So that youthful enthusiasm allows us to override our conscience, override that I know better, right? Being enthusiastic and young allows you to override that conscience in your mind that always speaks to you and say, well, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. But you still go ahead and do it anyway, right? That is what the Christians will consider to be sin, right? So even if you can't see it with the naked eye, uh, it's still sinning in the eyes of God, as the Christians will say, right? Then there's the criminal side, which the state has a handle in, right? So the state provides resources through the police force, through the army, through the legions and the different armed forces. The state provides sort of like a conscience for the people in society to know that there are certain things that you should not be doing. And these things are often written in the Constitution and they're also written in acts and laws and different bills of parliament. And that is what you call the crime or the criminal economy. Right? So involved in the criminal economy will be the law courts, who will be the administrators of crime. And then you have the attorneys, so the lawyers, who are commercializers, or we call the merchants or of crime, those who sell services. Right? So lawyers are paralegals. Paralegals are those persons who are what we call it, they call them uh, lawyers without practicing certificates or practicing degrees. Paralegals are also part of the criminal economy. Right? The prison, the Barbados Prison Service, is part of the criminal economy or the makeup of the criminal economy. Right? Health services are also very much inclusive with the criminal economy. Agriculture is included in the criminal or the makeup of the criminal economy. Right? So you're saying that the constructs of crime and impacts of society, that there's a whole machine that makes up what we consider to be the construct of the criminal economy, right? So let us backtrack a bit, right? What we're noticing in Barbados is that particularly young men, young men in particular, are the ones most prone to participate in criminal activity. And a study was done in Barbados which proved that majority of the persons who commit criminal acts are from a particular of 7 schools, 7 secondary schools in Barbados. So if you look at the population of the prison in Barbados, majority of the population in prison, if you ask them where they went to secondary school, majority of them went to the same 7 secondary schools in Barbados. Right? And that is a fact. So there has to be a connection between early childhood, schooling, and education, and the future of an individual passing through the school system, and how prone they are to engage in criminal activity. Right? So if you have the same seven secondary schools producing majority of the criminal element, right, it is safe to say that some schools in Barbados are recruitment grounds for the blocks and the criminal element of Barbados. Because if you're getting the same persons from the same seven schools populating the prison and populating the blocks, then there has to be a deeper issue, right? The schools basically becoming the recruiting grounds for the criminal element, right? And we can say that because let us look at school leavers, young men leaving school. There's a high possibility that you may leave school without CXC qualifications. There's a high possibility that you may leave school without any type of advanced learning or the basic skills. Um, we like to brag in Barbados about high literacy rates, but the amount of graduates from our secondary school system, a lot of them can't read, a lot of them can't write, a lot of them can't spell. So when you have illiteracy in a society, you have increases in crime. The more illiterate a society is, the higher levels of brazen criminal activity will occur. So I made this forecast and I made this speculation that the societal degradation in Barbados will get worse before it gets better because we as a country went through COVID, right? And COVID, we had to do online school, right? We had to do online school. And a large population of young children in this country did not have access to education during COVID. Who didn't have a device, they simply was not interested in online school. So you had what you call learning loss, a large chunk of learning loss happening during COVID. And if measures are not deployed to help close that learning loss, then the illiteracy that I spoke about is. And the more illiterate people you have in a society, the more likely you are to have criminal activity going on in it. Right? The more educated the society is, also, you can have a possible increasing criminal activity too. No, this is white collar crime. No, this is uh, high level corporate crime, corruption, political corruption, uh, corruption among lawyers, bankers, the educated in society. Right? So that is considered to be criminal activity as well. So we're not just focusing the conversation tonight on the working class population and speaking about crimes related to, we're also speaking about crime related to the big ups in society and the criminal acts that they perpetrate on society as well. Money laundering, theft of taxpayers' money, theft of attorneys holding on to landowners' conveyances, attorneys holding on to citizens' money and refusing to pay over to them. We have insurance fraud, we have banking fraud, we have the issue of forgery, right? So we spread the conversation wide to show that there's criminal activity in the upper crust of society and there are criminal acts also happening within the lower working classes of society as well. And we speak about poor, right? So let us look again as we were, or we just go as we were. We were discussing the school leaver. So when you leave school, skill, without qualification, more than likely you were not born with a gold spoon. So if more than likely your family does not have the societal connections. The only job you could be looking to get in Barbados without CXCs is, and I don't listen because I don't want to come across as I am degrading anybody's work. I'm proud of everybody's work. But let's face the reality that there are what we have in Barbados, low income jobs. We still have the working poor in Barbados, people $150, $300, $200. The people in Barbados who taking home $100 and something a week. How much money do you think those people who work in Bridgetown, right? Those people who work in stores in Bridgetown, how much money do you really feel that they make? Right? A lot of them work for $40 a day, sometimes $30, $50. They don't work for much. So the youth who might not want to, and the youth who also has Maslow hierarchy and needs at play, young people, the ones who are prone to engage in criminal acts, also lives on the spectrum of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So they also need to self-actualize. They also need to self-realize. And they have needs, they have wants, they still need to be maintained as well. So without having the requisite education, without also having the patience, without also having the family guidance and the network guidance, young people who, I don't want to say be recruited because I've never seen the blocks. I don't know application form saying come and join the blocks because blocks, yes, blocks, and people call them blocks nowadays, but block is a newish American term. It used to be fellas on the corner and the boys on the corner because most of these gatherings that you see happening in Barbados on the corners were fellas and people who lived in the communities, right? The fellas on the corner that most of us see every day in our passing, these are the fellas that people who live in mainstream society frown upon. These are the fellas that mainstream society like to look down on. These are the fellas that they say like to sit on the block whole day and smoke weed and drink rum and drink alcohol and do nothing, right? I've never seen the blocks have no applications and say, come and join blocks. These groupings are a part of the community. They are part of the community landscape in Barbados because those fellows out there, and as I said, including women now, these Barbadians, men and women that are out climbing on the blocks, are brothers, are our sisters, uncles, nieces, nephews. Those are family. They are not refugees coming into Barbados, or they are not migrants coming into Barbados. Those people out there are our families, right? And those groupings, when the underpinning of those groupings have changed, right? They have become commercially oriented, right? That the criminal element in Barbados intertwined into the household and family units of Barbados, right? Again, I repeat that. The criminal element of Barbados is tied to the families and the households of Barbados. Because as I said, those are our family members out there. Right? So when people think about criminal activity, right? And as somebody said, we think about the ghettos, and when we think about the blocks, right? These things are often tied back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right? Some useless governments is speaking it correct. Let me put that comment up on the screen. It says our society is very much connected to the ghetto life for the desires, sex and drugs, etc. Right? Persons who engage in crime, they are using criminal activity as a means of social mobilization. Majority of the people who enter into crime, criminal acts, enter based of their desire for social upward mobilization. So whereas you feel that you didn't fit in mainstream society, or you feel that you didn't fit in the system, and you drafted it, or you found yourself living in the informal sector, the informal side of the economy, you still have the need for economic upliftment. So even if you sell, even if you go to work every day in a nice corporate job, versus if you go on the blocks and you sell weed or you sell drugs or whatever, the need and the desire for money, financial empowerment, you both will have the same desires. So you still need you both, the person and the upright person. You still need to eat. You both still need to eat. Both have children that need to go to school, right? You both also will have the need for transportation. And so the criminal element or people living in the informal side of the world will use those gains that they receive from doing whatever acts to buy mainstream goods and services. Right? So the informal economy in Barbados, which involves proceeds of criminal acts, helps to keep Barbadian society rotating in the sense that my observation in as you guys know, I would have ran in a constituency, particularly city of Bridgetown, right, where there are high levels of criminal activity going on, drugs and guns and shootings and all types of things, prostitution and all types of uh, societal behaviors happening in Bridgetown, right? And from chatting with a lot of the impacted persons, meaning the person themselves who would have committed a criminal act, the mother or the father of the impacted person, and broader family members, the school that person went to school, the workplaces this person thing, all of these people are impacted by this activity. But the point remains is that they're just seeking self-actualization, and the system in their minds is not providing that avenue for economic enfranchisement. So without a skill, you think you can't get a job, and then for real, you really can't get a job and a proper paying job, and then the societal pressures from being associated with criminal activity, and then the fact that you may have a police record, and then the exclusion and the discrimination from mainstream society, then it makes it easier for persons to navigate to criminal elements to achieve self-actualization and to earn the money they want, because in their mind the traditional economic sectors do not benefit them. So the point here is that all criminal activity is underpinned by something to do with economics, money, finances, all of it. A man steals because he wants property, right? A man steals because he wants property. Either he wants it for himself or he wants to sell it, capture it, and resell it in order to make some money to then go and do whatever he wants to do with that money, right? A politician would be corrupt and steal taxpayers' money because he has a desire of wealth. He wants to self-actualize in wealth. So therefore, the material goods like a yacht and a three-story house with 5 bedrooms and jacuzzi and fully air conditioned, Lamborghini outside, 4 and 5 cars outside the house, trips to Dubai and Helsinki and Greenland and all over the world, financing the children's education to top Ivy League schools across. So the corrupt politician, his desire for wealth is underpinned by economics and money. So he would use politics as an avenue. The average school leaver in Barbados without society does not have the what we call it. He does not have the luxury of thinking like that. Doesn't have the luxury of thinking like that. So let us look at it, because I want to get on to the notion of violent crime specifically, and we're going to touch right at the heart of the problem of Barbados, where we're having all of these murders. Right. Peter King is saying true, Kimar. The same way a working man would want to smoke a spliff is the same weed man work for his money by selling spliffs. Well, very interesting perspective, right? That's a very good question, people. Whose fault is that for not thinking big? We're trying to say here, people, that the structure of the family is important. Social upbringing is important. Education and schools, because we made the observation that there are 7 schools in Barbados that are mainly responsible for the majority of the criminal population of Barbados. And we're making the point about economic viability and the economic viability of majority of the persons who engage in criminal acts. They do not see themselves as being participants or earners in the traditional economic sectors, so therefore they drift into the informal economic sectors because it is more lucrative financially. And with an underperforming economy that has very little hope for young people and very little potential for future earning capacity that would allow these people to realize their dreams, they resort to criminal activity because the criminal activity is financially rewarding and it will allow the average man to live out his dreams and desires with the ill-gotten gains. But regardless of how he got it, he still will enjoy himself and self-actualize and realize the same way an upstanding and upright citizen would. So the needs don't change, the needs of man don't change regardless of if you're a criminal or a good person. So it comes down to the belief system that majority of the criminals or the criminal element has. The belief system, because a person engaging in nefarious activities will tell you, well, I engage in nefarious acts to feed my children. How do you argue or how do you begin to construct a narrative to engage in a conversation with a mentality like that? Right? So you're seeing the point. Mentality of the people who live in the society when there were more structured families, uh, when there were more structured families, you had less violent crimes going on in Barbados. But we saw a massive surge in gun violence and criminal activity shortly after the 2007 World Cup and the impact of globalization. The impact of globalization on Barbados and other small island countries has been so severe that globalization has brought more borders. So in a bid to gain economic prosperity, these countries open the borders. Right? Countries open their borders in the bid for globalization. And with open borders, you run the risk of illicit drug trade, illicit firearms trade, and illicit human trafficking trade, and money laundering. Right? So since that time of globalization and open borders and more open immigration into other parts of the world, citizenship by investment, you had an influx into Barbados and some other countries firearms, arms dealing, arms trafficking, uh, arms trafficking. So with the increasing arms trafficking, right? With the increasing arms trafficking, because if you look at it right now, the only people who are legally supposed to be trafficking arms are the government. And the government will traffic arms for policing services. The government will traffic arms for army related activities. And then there's also the private shooters. So like the people who go and use the shooting ranges and the people who use like sport shooting, because Barbados has some of the best marksman shooters in the world, right? Sport shooting. So those institutions right now are mainly the only ones who are supposed to be taking firearms, right? So if we assume that Barbados has its borders completely locked down and the borders are fully safe, then we can assume, then we can assume that given the pool of the persons that I just listed, that the guns will going to be coming from that side, from the government side. Right? An assumption. I'm not saying that's what's happening. We just assume it here. If we go the fact that none of the citizens in Barbados, private citizens, are importing these things, are allowing for the import thereof, then they will go to come from the government side. But the only people are supposed to have them, the army, the police, the private sports shooters. Right? And then there's something called the private arms traffic or persons who have a license to import, export, because maybe the government not whatever. Right. So you have this influx, and then we have a former top cop in Barbados, or high level police officer, high in the ranks, making the claim that the firearms in Barbados are coming through the ports of entry. That was his claim. That was a claim made by a former top cop in Barbados. Like, okay, well, the guns are here. They got through. This does not manufacture guns. Right? We do not manufacture. We are not the source of guns. Right? You're not the source. So they have to be coming from. So for the persons who are much older than me, you could tell me about. You tell me when Buckley's factory used to manufacture some old metal guns. You could tell me about that thing, but that was yesteryear and not a wide scale. So we're not the source of it, which means that they have to be getting in here some way, somehow. Right? To bring them here, obviously there has to be a cost attached to it. And for a person who does not have any CXCs, say no on the block all day, selling whatever, cannot afford to be bringing firearms across the seas of Barbados, trafficking firearms across the seas of Barbados into this country because they do not have the economic wherewithal to do it. So a man that without a passport, never probably even leaving the country, or fellows never even leaving the country, can import a lot of these firearms into the country and get them in, and then be allowed to be in society wreaking havoc. So you see the cost of the upfront cost associated with the importation of these things, and then the distribution of it obviously has some type of economic uh, attachment to it as well, right? So here you have an industry, on the ground industry, or informal industry. Barbadians having to recognize that there has been a change in culture of Barbados, and that firearms are becoming an illicit trade, or the trade of firearms is becoming an illicit trade. Because in it, to trade firearms means that you have to have money. So where the criminals getting all of this money from to be buying up and trading all of these guns? I don't think that you would bring guns here for free and give them away for free. So there's the economic element of the trade, and let's be frank, firearms are sold all over the world. You have Lockheed Martin, a big firearms manufacturer in America. You got the Iranians, you got the Russians, you got so many gun manufacturers across the world. Right? So the way how Caribbean society is structured to be anti-firearm, there are other countries across the world that are pro-firearm, that teach children about firearms. America is very much embedded in the trade of firearms because America have what we call open carry states. You can walk up and down the street with your firearm. You can walk in a store off the road and buy a gun in a gun store. That is how easily accessible guns are in America. Right? In the Arab world, I've watched weddings belonging to the Arabs, and you get guns, rocket launchers, tanks, any type, grenades, dynamite. These are things I give it to you as Christmas gifts, wedding gifts. Right? So look at the difference in cultures. Right? So how do I argue or begin to build an argument with somebody whose culture is that of the firearm culture? Right? I'm gonna step outside the realm 1 second. Right? There has been a saying that the influence of music, the influence of music and violent music has an impact on individuals. So it's saying that those persons who listen to gang banging, gun toting lyrics are more than likely to go out there and engage in the act that they heard on the song. There has been some persons who've been trying to argue that point, right? Let us look at the what music influences the culture of Barbados and Barbadians. Let us look at what music influences the culture of Barbadians. Eh, We had the emergence of new cultures in Barbados. So in the earlier times, meaning the 1970s, the 1980s, and it was the late 80s, 90s, heading up 2000s when you had the emergence of television in the Caribbean, right? So those persons who had earlier lives in the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, the early 80s, and there was not a lot of access to television. You had radio, right? You had radio. And at one point in time in Barbados, the weapon of choice was not that of the gun, but that of the sword. The Collins in Beijing Palace, Collins and chop. You know, we had a lot of chopping in Barbados. violent, aggressive chopping in Barbados, and cane field murders. Right? We had those phenomena. But as society evolved, and a former Prime Minister of Barbados, David Thompson, the Honorable David Thompson, spoke about in his 1990s campaign, crime and violence, crime and violence. Who remembers David Thompson, crime and violence, crime and violence? Right? And it is my speculation that the importation of the television and the importation of new cultures in Barbados with the importation of the television gave young Barbadians, the ones that you see that are adults today, the ones that are doing the shootings, it gives those young Barbadians emergence of the American culture of gangster rap, right? Y'all remember the emergence of the American culture in gangster rap when American cultures started to impact the Caribbean with the emergence of television and the access of the computer and other medias for Barbadians to be seeing what happens in the area. So you had the emergence of these music videos, the emergence of gangster rap in America. Then you had the cultural appropriation where those in the Caribbean start to towards to import American cultures. And then in Jamaica, there was a change in Jamaican society where we went from reggae artists, Bob Marley, and the more mellow reggae rebellious nation. And this was the time when and the hippie movement and the Bob Marley movement started to grow big, right? And the old people would say, don't go in the corner and smoking that dope. Don't go and smoking the dope. And y'all can remember how it goes with Bob Marley and the importance of the marijuana culture and that type of reggae music. They were saying that the reggae music encouraged the people to be rebellious. Locks up your hair and knot up your hair and you're smoking that stuff and you're wearing your Rasta colors vest. And they were saying that the Rasta culture had that impact. They even went as far as to say that there was this big story going on when they say that marijuana turned the white girls or wanted allow the white girls to sleep with the black men. That the tourists would travel from Europe to come to the Caribbean to to get high on drugs and marijuana and engage in sex with the locals. Y'all remember that? Like, so just looking at the influences of Barbados, so you had the young people being influenced by the Jamaican culture with the emergence of artists like Ninja Man and Bounty Killer and Beanie Man. When they introduced a culture of guns and violent lyrics. So on one hand, the youth being impacted by this culture, and then on the other hand, they're impacted by the importation of American culture, right? And young children spending less and less time with family, but they're now being fed a diet from the Jamaican and emergence of that culture and moving away from the reggae culture. And in America, the importation of the gangster rap culture with the feud between we call it Notorious Big or Biggie Smalls and Tupac and Sean Diddy Combs and those guys, which spoke a lot about those gun cultures, right? So as time progressed and you had the deepening of globalization and the more invasion of the culture of the Caribbean, right? The culture of carrying firearms became a norm because one, you had it in a lot of movies, right? So that is called socialization. So they started to socialize this society towards it by having all of these movies and putting it in your faces. Like, and again, the young people taking it in. And then there was a big change to the Caribbean, one that many people do not wish to speak about. But I could speak about it as a young person because I noticed it. I wrote my secondary school SBA on guns and society. And I can tell you this, I was ridiculed by my social studies teacher when I was at the St. Michael School, wanting to write my SBA on guns and the criminal element of Barbados. I was ridiculed and forced to change my topic because they said I had this weird obsession with things. But I was always concerned about the presence of guns in Barbadian society and what it would bring. Our culture F allowed to fester, and we are seeing the repercussions of that. So, as far back in secondary school, I was attempting to work my SBA on this specific topic. Uh, When I went to university at Cave Hill, my thesis for a course called rhetoric was on crime and society. So I have written a couple of papers on this specific topic. eh, As socialization and cultures always play a big role as the aggressive factor here, and we just described it with, and I just described it with the importation of cultures from other places, the introduction of violent lyrics into the culture, and how it started both on the Jamaican side and on the side of the Americans. Right? So fast forward, there was a changing of the Barbadian society when I was in either first or second form. I was This was either around 2008, 2009, and there was a musical war, right? There was a musical war. Right? There was a musical war between Vibes Cartel and Movado, and they had two sides of the fence. They had the gully and you had the Gaza. Had the Gaza. So you had the entire Caribbean listening to this music and dividing themselves into two groups: the gully side and the Gaza side. And this gully Gaza argument permeated the schools, even down to the primary schools. Had children saying that they belong to a gang, gully, or Gaza, right? So you had a entire young population hooked in to this occurrence, right? And fast forward now to the future, you're seeing a society of young people who, through socialization, are very comfortable with having firearms in their possession. Are illegal, because they're not legal, are illegal firearms in their possession without the fear of the law, without the fear of the family, without the fear of society, and without the fear of any repercussions for carrying that far. So that is indeed a social problem. Right? That is indeed a social problem where you have a society of younger people young, masculine, aggressive people who have been socialized to think that firearms are okay. Right? We can also stretch and say that some people believe that the criminal justice system has not given them or is not giving them any justice. So some persons decide that they want to take the law in their own hands. That is also an argument that could be put forward. But we need to look at the root cause of why the persons who are using these guns are indeed feeling the need to have to use these guns. And why they don't feel the need to go and take back a sword and or knife or dynamite or something, but they're using a gun specifically because we have been socialized through television, through radio, through advertising to think that the possession of firearms, one, is a means of empowerment to give you a sense of security and safety. Again, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a firearm or the possession of a firearm will give you the inclination to feel you need to be protected, provide security, right? And you are willing to take the risk of possessing an illegal firearm and face jail time or whatever time. You take that risk because something psychologically, mentally is telling you need to take that risk and possess that firearm for whatever reasons you choose to put forward. And that is where you need to deal with the problem. But how then does a state seek to tackle a psychological problem like that when it is attached to other elements of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Again, self-actualization, self-realization, the need to be economically empowered, the need also to have things like, many people might not want to believe this, but basic self-respect, right? There's an emerging culture in Barbados where the perpetrators of violent crimes become celebrities because they have committed a criminal act. They go to jail, they come back out, they get resources. So after they have a car before they get a car now, after they have a girl, they get in 4 or 5 girls now, right? And when they come out in society, they get respect from the informal sectors in society. So the same way you would go to work in the workplace and seek self-respect from your peers, right? And if you do well at work, you get a girl, you get incentive, you get increase in pay. So these same incentives also exist for people who engage in the criminal element. And these people are given celebrity status and they are celebrated. So much so that they will stay in their own spaces to become celebrated rather than to turn a new leaf or a change leaf to come back into mainstream society, because mainstream society, in their opinions, has no room to celebrate them for who they perceive themselves to be or what they have to offer. So again, it comes back down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which shows you that the root cause of these criminal acts is indeed psychological, right? So when you say A, you also say B. I once heard a quote says that a man had 2 sons. Yes, where they're celebrated, but they're celebrated given the title of boss, given the title of chief, right? And given whatever fictitious or artificial societal recognition that they need. But as I was saying, the a man has two children. A drunk man has two children. A drunk man has two children. Right? One child grows up to be a drunk, complete drunk, just like how the father was. And the other child grows up to be completely sober, never even once smelling alcohol. The story here is that both children on and learn from the examples of the father. And the example one said that he looked on and he saw his father drinking and drunk, and he's now following in his father's footsteps, and he's now a drunk. The other guy said, I looked on to my father as well, and I said specifically, I do not want to be a drunk. I never want to be like him. But at the end of the day, both of those are his sons. And he has to take care of both of his sons, right? He has to take care of both of those sons. So the example here is the same, right? The example here is the same. It's psychological. It's psychological. It has a lot to do with the family and the brazen criminal acts that are being perpetrated in Barbados. If it is not addressed in the households, then we are going nowhere. We had the introduction in Barbados because we're looking at state the intervention now. Let's look at what was attempted. Right, we had state intervention by the Barbados government. So, so in state intervention, the government attempted to roll out what they call a national peace program. For 1 second, please. Yeah, sorry. They rolled out the national peace program as a policy attempt to tackle the scourge of gun violence and criminal activity in Barbados. Right? So we have the national peace program. The national peace program, they said, is a attempt to tackle the root causes of crime and to enter into more preventative measures as opposed to tackling it at the aftermath when the act has already been perpetrated. So we're looking at, or the peace program, they said, is intended to tackle the thing at the root cause. So they attempted to roll out peace football, peace cricket. You have field officers, peace officers, and they hired people who were wayward in society in attempts to try to turn around the scourge of gun violence. We had something signed in Barbados called a peace treaty, right? Or a truce. A peace treaty or a truce. Don't forget, guys, to like alternate views. Don't forget to share alternate views. So far, we're going well. We're up at 215 persons. I'm going to take some comments in a while. But don't forget to like and share this program. This program is very important. Uh, this is dealing with the issue right at its heart. So you want as many persons on the program as possible. So we were on the peace. We were on the initiative of the peace program and its preventative measures as was put forward to the public. Right? So the peace program, hiring field officers, giving them adequate pay, sending of the troops program. So we had, if I listen to the minister responsible for the peace program, the minister responsible for crime prevention, the minister responsible for crime prevention and the national peace program, uh, they had what you call a truce or the sending of a truce. And they're saying that the minister is saying that there were two main gangs in Barbados, and they were able to get the gangs to call a truce. And to be honest with you, since the calling of that truce, we have seen a massive drop off, massive decrease in shootings in Barbados. I'll be the first to admit that. Since the signing of the truce between these two major gangs, the minister never said who the gangs were, but the signature of this truce I saw a drop, a massive drop in violent crimes and particularly the murders of young black boys in Barbados. Because for some reason, white boys are not being shot in Barbados, Indian boys are not being shot in Barbados, Syrian boys, Guyanese boys. And we ain't coloring the argument with race or any of those undertones, but when you check it out, it is a fact that young black Canadian boys are the ones who are being murdered. Right? So we saw a massive drop in that, right? No, as of recent, as of recent, we're seeing a massive spike again in murders by the gun. Right? You should ask yourself the question, and just we tend to sometimes be unfair in criticisms, and persons try to tie every single murder or every single criminal act to the peace program. Right? That is a political move. So it is maybe politically feasible for some to try to tie every single murder to that of the peace program, but that would not be fair. That would not be a fair application to tie every single one because a lot of the acts, a lot of the persons who they be doing the acts may not even know what's the peace program. So I don't think that it is fair to tie the spike in murders to the peace program, right? I don't think that that is necessarily a fair analysis to take. If I'm being honest and being intellectually honest, I don't think that that is a fair analysis or a fair comparison to me, right? The fact, and this is where I criticize, and I heard the former Prime Minister, Mr. Stuart, saying, you had a truce, you saw the massive drop in murders, but you had no amnesty. There were attempts at an amnesty earlier. I don't know if it worked or how it worked, right? But there was no amnesty to allow people to bring in the guns. So you had to choose, but they didn't take the guns off the road. They didn't take the guns off the street, right? So still, you had the peace program. You had some, and this is where the government, and this is where the government falls down. The government made the critical error. The government made the critical error in trying to tie murders and tie the increase in violence to their success in the peace program. That was a critical error because what you're seeing, And I said it wasn't fair, but you can't blame the people, you gotta blame the government. The people are tying, right? The people are tying every single murder to that of the success of the peace program. But you can't blame the people because the government put forward the program as the solution to tackling it, right? But let's be fair. I say, and I watched some of the preventative programs that were rolled out. I saw boxing programs. I saw football programs. I saw cricket programs. I saw mentorship programs through the peace program of people going to the prison to do counseling. And I saw a lot of young people, young men in particular, right? It was also said in other forums that the government was hiring criminals to do work. I am one of the biggest believers in reformative justice, reforming people. I don't believe in always giving a big shot a chance. So you missed me with the argument when you said that you hire criminals. I don't believe in that. I believe a man should be given an opportunity to turn his life around. That is my argument. Right? If any of us, right? If any of us on here, not if all of us on here have made mistakes. All of us on here has done something that we probably shouldn't have been making it in life. But we had to ask for forgiveness, not only from the Lord, but we had to seek forgiveness from the persons that we personally wronged. None of us on here are saints. Nobody on a life is on here, on this life or alive, is sin free. It's just that some of our mistakes have been more costly than others. Some of us have been found out. But because you have not been found out, don't make you less, don't make you more respectable or the other person less respectable. All of us make mistakes. So I am one person endorse the hiring of persons who have criminal records or who have made a mistake in life and who probably went to prison and who needs a second chance of entering society again. I fully endorse it. Those are the type of people we need to focus on. Are the type of people who engage in the acts and who bring the waywardness to society. So we need to focus on reforming them, not making bigger criminals out of them. Right? So let me just issue my disclaimer. When you look at the prescription of what is being put forward, right? If you look at the word preventative measure, right? Any plan, any program or so that prevents young people, particularly young males, because it's young black males, Barbadian males, who filling up the prison, any move to prevent them from committing crimes and putting themselves in trouble, I support it. I might not necessarily support the other side, but that's politics, though. That's political. We could put the political jabs in it. And that is fine for who wants to do that. But Alternative Views is not that type of program where we focus on the politics. We look at the policy, right? And we're looking at the policy. So when you have persons who come back in society looking for reformation, you have persons in society looking for reformation, and you do not provide the avenues to reform them, then you will have spikes in crime. They will resort to using crime because there is no or very little areas of reformation. So I hope you are getting the point here, alternate viewers. I hope you are getting the point here that as opposed to seeing it through political eyes, let's look at crime through the eyes of policy. Most of the people who commit crime, after probably they sit and sober up, they will tell you that they were looking for something, they were seeking something, and they were not finding it, they were not getting it. Right? And I saw Walter Edie made a comment on here. How Walter Edie is saying, right, that there's a lot of male mentorship happening in Barbados. Trying to find it that I can put it up. There's a lot of male. Alright, he said too many males grew up without male mentorship. Right? And this is a fact. Most of the young men in jail are wayward. They need guidance. They need father figures, proper role models, opportunity. And this is why I say that. If you look at the court system, you have some of the brightest fellas coming down, and when the magistrate asks them, so who will be your counsel today? Who will be your lawyer representing you? A lot of them stand up and say, I am not represented by any lawyer. I represent myself. And the level of articulation put forward by somebody accused, I am blown away. Not even Andrew Pilgrim, not even Michael Lashley, not even the Chief Justice, not even brilliant lawyers like Hal Gollop and Ralph Tarn and even the Attorney General. The level of articulation that these accused have is top tier. Right? But if we had a way to reform, so I say this, some of our best and brightest lawyers are sitting in jail. Some of our best and brightest track stars, athletes, are sitting in jail. Some of our brightest and most creative visual artists, musical artists are in jail. So if we throw away the creative talent that we have in Barbados, that it begins to populate the jail, then you end up with a society of drones. People who just want to get a 9 to 5 job, go to work, get paid taxes, and go home. Right? But anything that has potential has to be molded. As the elders like to tell me, groom. Need to be groomed. Right? Any program of intervention, counseling, to help guide and mentor offenders, I support. But I also tell you this, as much chances that as I want for criminal offenders, I'm giving you a free and fair chance. However, the law of the country will be applied forcefully to ensure that there will no longer be a continuation of some of these brazen criminal acts in Barbados. So sometimes when I see Justice Carly Graves applying some of these lengthy sentences to people, sometimes I'm like, once the facts align and once I'm convinced that the person is guilty, I'm like, good. There needs to be serious deterrence for people who think that they can become nuisances to society, that they can just walk around and disturb the peace. It needs to be serious. punishment. Right? So this is where now the lawyers have to have a sense of moral capacity, right? So if you know a man is a serial rapist, walking around raping multiple women and destroying lives, why would you as a lawyer, knowing he's guilty, I mean every man deserves the right to representation, but there comes a time when you have to draw a line in the sand and say that no way will not represent you because the issue or the act that you have perpetrated on society is so grave that we cannot allow people to feel that they can come and do some of the worst things in society and to society. I think that some big shot lawyer, just because he has a QC, will come and represent you, and you just have to pay some money and you get off and re-enter society to continue to perpetrate your injustice. So these type of things need to be looked at as well. And what also needs to be looked at is the aiding and abetting of the criminal element by law enforcement, corruption in the police force, right? So that is something that needs to be looked at. Last Good Friday in Barbados, there was an incident that received widespread conversation in Barbados. Like, widespread conversation in Barbados. And I heard all types of notions, I heard all types of criticisms where a gentleman was able to, after the police told him to, this was in the middle of COVID, shut his shop, just cut shop, and the gentleman would have picked up the phone and called the Prime Minister, and it's alleged that the Prime Minister intervened to stop the police from doing their duty. And I heard all types of things and people speaking, you know, it was all types of things being said. Like, we even had the criticism where people believe that those types of phone calls should not be made and that the police should be independent, allowed to operate in a way free of interference from the political thing. But the fact remains is that persons in society who may have doubts about the character of that particular individual believe that, you know, the thing. So the reputational damage that is associated with engaging in this, because hardly ever, right? We sat, right? Not defending anybody, but we sit in Barbados and we perpetrate some narratives of being a colonial society, right? We had a situation in Barbados where a yacht or a boat was held with X amount of drugs on it, narcotics on it, right? And it was like almost for 1, 2, 3 that we know that certain particular people would have gotten off. Right? So the captain of the boat, he went jail, and the two other men walked free. This is the first time I ever see a criminal accused having a press conference in the courtyard, by the way. But that is what happened. Right? So they had this interview, whatever. This boat was held with this narcotics on it, whatever, and there was no discussion like what you had with the cut shop incident. So we only tend to believe that when you're black in Barbados, that's the only place where crime is. Right? Crime permeates all strata of society. So again, I can't afford a boat full of RV, but there are people in Barbados who could afford a boat full of dope. They got people in Barbados who could afford plane full of dope and drugs and guns. So you choose to tackle crime from the perspective of policing because it is commercially viable to practice it from the policing end or the end result of it. When you have crime in society, lawyers benefit. If they're gonna crime, the criminal lawyers can't get work. Right? So for every murder that has happened in Barbados, a lawyer got a job. And the lawyer got fees. And if he's a king's counsel, he has high levels of fees. Right? The clerk in parliament, not parliament, the clerk in the court has a job. The magistrate has a job. The prosecutor has a job. The prison officers has a job. Right? So when you gotta pay those fines to the court, then the government would make money from you uh committing crime. So the system in of itself still benefits from criminal activity. Yes, we're provided that the criminal is caught. Right? So state resources have to be spent constantly to tackle these issues. So based on the IMF program, let me just say this to you now. There will be massive spikes in crime in Barbados, in the Barbados economy, in the Barbados society. Because in being an IMF program, the level of state resources available to tackle the issue of crime will not be available. So where the government again may want to deal with it again from the policing side, the government is short of police officers, which meaning that young people, as opposed to wanting to go and join the police force, they rather go and do crime. You think for a country that has an unemployment problem, that the police force should be struggling for people? That's because the people are losing their confidence in the institutions that have been set up to tackle crime in Barbados. In fact, the police force should be refusing to say we ain't got no more, but that's not the case. But still, you have young people, and when they go around canvassing and speaking to people all over, they say I want a job. But the police force has all of these vacancies, but the people don't want to join. What is that? This is the agency set to tackle crime in Barbados, and the youth of the country don't have confidence that they want to join it. Why is that? Right? I've been speaking to police. The treatment of police in Barbados have been very poor. Salaries of police are very low. The hours are very long. It is a very restrictive job. It puts their lives at risk. And not to mention the fact that the public displays of corruption by some members in the police force is causing a loss of confidence among the population and in the society within these institutions. So when you have a breakdown in confidence for the police, and then you have a breakdown of confidence for the army, and you have a breakdown of confidence for the court system, a breakdown of confidence for the lawyers, then you're looking at anarchy in the society where people believe they have to take justice within their own hands. Right? Because what is a society if people are committing crimes and you call the police station and the police station is saying to you, well, we don't have enough jeeps in place to send somebody to respond to you. You gotta wait till Officer Bradshaw come back off the beat for him to send somebody to you. What is a society if that is occurring? Right? What is a society if that is occurring? Right? So Barbados is facing a very precarious situation, well being on the IMF program, well facing cuts to budgets, not being able to hire enough police, not being able to have a proper security system in place, unable to clear the backlogs in the courts, unable to have a justice system that works within a specific time. So if a man rapes a woman and the case takes 10 and 15 years to call, do you understand the trauma that's associated with having to go to court 10 or 15 years after you've been raped to then have to come and rehash all of those horrid and negative memories in the court system? Eh, so the amount of time it takes to enact justice in Barbados is also contributing to the degradation of confidence that Barbadians have in the system. And when they take justice in their own hands, you end up with a spate of murders. You end up with family members who support persons who enact criminal acts because you know you ain't getting justice from the police, you know you ain't getting justice from the system. So do what you gotta do, son or daughter. So those narratives are being perpetrated in the household. So how then do you tackle a problem or tackle the problem of crime when the persons who are enacting that crime psychologically believes that they have a right to do it, and then that belief is further supported by a family system, one who does not tell them anything, or two who tells them that they are right, and three protect them from when the police are running them down. How then do you tackle that? Do you continue to pelt state resources and pelt the money, the taxpayers' money, down the well and behind those problems and expect a different result? Right? So what we're dealing with, as I say, we're reaping the fruits that started back again in 2000s, 90s, late 80s. Right? Just look at the ages of the people who commit crimes. I sorry I didn't have my screen that I could share with you tonight. Let's look at the ages of the people who commit these crimes. 21, 22, 23, 18, 17, 16. Hardly anybody past 30. So you have a population where your less than 30-year-olds are killing out each other and killing out the men who have to breed the women so that the women could repopulate. They're killing out the young men. So what will Barbados look like in the future when we kill out majority of the young men and women are already in the majority already, so men are becoming scarcer and scarce, and the young Barbadian male is becoming scarcer and scarcer? What do you do? So if before you get to 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and I could get you into a sporting program that can help you to focus and not see the life of crime as your avenue out, or as your avenue for social upliftment, then I think that that is one life saved, that is many lives saved. Right? So any effort at all to tackle this scourge of crime and violence in society, which is heavily underpinned by wealth and money, and the need to increase wealth, right? Then we know we have to see one area in Barbados, and I'm gonna touch this point quickly, and then I want to take some comments from you. One area in Barbados that because we focus mainly on crime, we touched a little bit on the linkages with the drugs, but I want to touch on something called sex, and that of human trafficking, and to highlight to you that there's a serious element of human trafficking in the Caribbean, and how the free movement of people allow for the free movement and the trade of sex to become a part of the culture of the Caribbean. Right? So, in every country in the world, in the Netherlands, we have the Red Lake District. In Barbados, we have Nelson Street, and uh, and the Garrison Savannah. So we all know what happens at the Garrison Savannah at night, and we know what happens in Nelson Street at night, right? The man will go shopping in Netherlands, in the Red Lake District. He will go shopping for sex, right? And you have females being trafficked into countries for the sole purpose of sex. So you had the emergence of brothels where the women would come in and work and and make money, and like exotic massage parlors and those type of things. Like the Bible spoke to prostitution and said that prostitution, along with fishing, is up there one of the oldest professions in the world. And some societies are looking at legalizing prostitution and the sale of sex, right? And the sale of sex in the economy or in economies, right? That is also a crime. Right? But it happens so openly and nonchalant that people don't think nothing about it, right? People don't think nothing about it. But if you ever have conversations with some of these human beings, right? Because they're not scum, they're human beings. If you ever have, a lot of them are actually oppressed to the fact that they're in Barbados. The persons who brought them in took away their passports, and many of them coming from countries that don't even speak English. A lot of Spanish speaking people in Barbados, and people of strange accents, and they will tell you that because they do understand a little bit of foreign language, they will tell you that their passports are commandeered by people, right? And they have been brought here for these specific reasons, right? So sex sells in an economy, but the law of the country still allows it to be illegal, right? So as a Pedro asked if I went shopping. No, I didn't go shopping, but in the city of Bridgetown, I had to encounter a lot of I had to encounter a lot of that. I had to chat with those people. I had to take care of some of those people because they're in Barbados and they struggle and they come to you in politics to tell you a lot of stuff that goes on. Right? They're still humans. If you wasn't like FBI in the poll, I would think you is a shopper. Boy, well, in the Bible, many people bought concubines, and many people bought and purchased, and many Barbados will continue to buy and purchase, right? And some way or the other, you gotta buy and purchase. I don't recommend it, but I rather you go and buy and purchase than decide that you want, get aggressive and do scraping, raping. I don't endorse it, but I rather it, right, Pedro? But no, but as I was saying, but those type of human trafficking activities allows countries to become blacklisted because a lot of these persons uh, do take money and send back out of the country to repatriate the money that they would have earned from the sex work and send it back over to their families in the countries that they would have came from, right? So you have human people being human trafficked, coming here, engaging in sex work, and sending the money that they would have earned out of the country through repatriations, remittances, sorry, through remittances back to the country, to the other country. So even sex work hampers the economy because these persons then send the money remitted out of the country, right? So some smart government now who wants to legalize prostitution would allow sex work as a legit work category and regularize sex workers to then become to become legit work for them to then pay taxes and for them to then have citizenship and then bring their families into the country to then stop the money that they would have earned from the sex work going out to the country to then let it stay here. Some right economists or some smart government will want to do that if they're looking to legalize prostitution. On the other hand, no. That would have probably happened in Barbados a while ago, but Barbados is a Christian society to some point. The Christian nature of Barbados would frown upon that, and therefore it would not be legalized, but it would be kept as a black market activity, still be considered as a crime because of human trafficking and it's illegal, but the state or the government will put no resources whatsoever behind the prosecution of the people who engage in buying sex or the trade of sex. So then it's allowed to happen freely and willy nilly. And the state just wouldn't pay any money. Like, we do not want what is happening within that space to then be transferred over into violent criminal activity, shootings, and murders. That when you're shot dead, boom, the police don't even bother to come and investigate. When you're dead, you're dead. And two sons or Keith Jones or Way Funeral Home or somebody will just come in the white van and pick you up and show you in the back of the van and carry you straight to the morgue. Barbados is seeking to pass legislation to sell organs, so your organs will probably be sold for some type of money, right? So even in death, there's money. Right? So yes, Barbados is seeking to pass legislation for the resale of human organs, as was announced by the Attorney General, and that is online. You can go and pull up that story right now. Okay. But yes, let me take some of your comments. We are going well tonight. We are about 227 persons. So thank you very much. Just let me know by the comments uh, if you're enjoying the content. Um, how do you perceive this conversation that we're having? It is alternate views. It's not your mainstream conversation. We're bringing it true and factual here. This is a new age, a new time, and that type of double speak conversation is on its way out, and you need to come straight up and factual with the population, and alternate views is about that. So let us take some comments from the chat. They say we have Walt Edie here, we have Richard Mears, Calvin McKenzie, Fabian Yard, Square 4, ADG, Clayty Vaughn, Pete Way. Pete Way is asking, is the government paying for peace? Or mean peace? Yeah. I want to know where the guns coming from. ADG, if you want to know where the guns are coming from, just put in a nice search on Google. Gun manufacturing plants. Gun manufacturing plants. And if you look and see where all the guns are manufactured, then you will see where they're coming from. And the countries are where they're coming from. Right. Richard Mears is saying the people of Barbados should be able to hold the government responsible and make them pay. The government is too loose. You need much stricter laws, and we did say that, Richard, so we are agreeing with you that after opportunities to reform and to re-emerge back into society, then stiff penalties need to be put in place um, as a deterrent. We have Akil Daly. So good night to Akil Daly. I think Akil Daly is the former director of the National Peace Program. He is saying that the peace program is an excellent initiative. So that is Akil Daly. So it's good that we attract such high profile guests on the show, because we were speaking about the peace program for a bit. So it was good to have him on the show. We had Akil on here already before. So it's very good to have him know that we're having this discussion. So welcome Akil Daly. Richard Mears is saying that is why I say God hold lawmakers responsible. Leave it or not. You hold the government. You hold the government. You are responsible. Akil is asking, how do you suggest we get the guns off the streets? Square for saying, Kimar, you talking rescuing our young people in this society. This is a good sign. Richard Mears is saying these people are hypocrites and they encourage all this wickedness. They know what is going on, but I carefully say what you do, for it will come back to bite you in their ear double X. Elaine Rivers, like, share, subscribe to Alternate Views. Take Alternate Views to 1,000 subscribers. Yes, Elaine, let us take us to 1,000 subscribers. We have 231 persons on here. I want at least 200 likes. There are no persons who may be watching but may not want to show themselves. I can assure you that if you like the show, nobody will see, nobody will know. It's like a vote, nobody will know who you vote for. So you can like Alternate Views, and you can share it privately to your WhatsApps if you don't want to share it probably, but just give us a like and give us a share, because this information on here can assist to help, and you know, it can assist. Tonight I want to take brief moment to make two acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge. I want to acknowledge uh, Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. Right? I want to acknowledge Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. And Stuart and Perkins Caribbean is a company that I am indeed a part of. We do work there, work for, work with. Stuart and Perkins is invested into real estate. We're not only a real estate company, but this evening we want to advertise our real estate ventures, and we also want to acknowledge that Stuart and Perkins will be involved in some business ventures coming up. We'll be owning the distribution rights. We'll be entering into a distribution arrangement with a company called Squeeze Me Juicy, and we'll be distributing uh, drinks, natural juices, made homemade natural juices. Next week we're going to do a show, a big show specifically speaking to our distribution deals through our Perkins with Squeeze Me Juicy, and we're going to have some displays going on with the brand, and we really hope that you support the brand. The brand is offering naturally homemade juices, and I'm sure those persons who would have attended the marches would have tasted the high level of quality associated with the drinks from Squeeze Me Juicy. You have many different flavors: the tamarind, the soursop, the coconut, the fruit punch, the orange. Uh, but next week is the time when we have that full display on. But I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. Stuart and Perkins Caribbean and Squeeze Me Juicy, and I also want to acknowledge the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute. Uh, but here is Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. We're advertising real estate tonight, so let us not forget uh, those persons who may have a house for sale, or you may know somebody who wants a house sold. Stuart and Perkins Caribbean, we can assist. We also do. This is real fruit pedro, no concentrated juice. Uh, we also have tell you areas for economic consultation. We also do political consultation, economic analysis, and other ways. So we just wanted to acknowledge Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. And you can follow Stuart and Perkins Caribbean on Instagram, on Facebook, and have your needs taken care of. So we're Stuart and Perkins uh, Real Estate on Instagram, Stuart and Perkins Caribbean on Facebook. Don't hesitate to reach out and go on the social media. And you can also contact Stuart and Perkins at 846-991-2. Stuart and Perkins Caribbean at gmail.com. You may reach out to me for any other information. And also, again, let us acknowledge the the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute. Now, back to our conversation. Amika Riley is saying we need a spiritual balance where we decode Christianity. Hasbro is saying I'm learning a lot from your content. Thank you, Hasbro. Anthony, all of us saying the problem in Barbados, other groups can do as they like. A few years ago, shipping container came into Barbados with $11 million worth of drugs, and the shipment was to an Indian. Uh, I remember that. Richard Mills, as if there are no black people in the world that makes guns. Some could have said a factory all paid in US dollars. That's when we spoke about manufacturers, you guys. So we can expect to see some homeless people as disappearing. But remember, they say Kimura, that is a joke. Barbados used to be a Christian place, no more. Barbados is a lost island, you better believe it. But I'm in full agreement with this. I do not believe Barbados is a Christian society. Because we even see corruption in the clergy. We've had some very questionable behaviors of men and women who claim that they are of the cloth, molestation of children and alcoholism and all types of sex with the congregation and a lot of strange behavior is happening of people. But we don't attempt to blanket the whole clergy with that. There's some good men and women in the priesthoods, but I feel in the majority that the society of itself, that because all you need to do is look at the population of the churches in Barbados. Look how they have decreased, and majority of the black population in this country are no longer going into the churches on Sunday. And there has to be a deeper explanation as to why people are not frequenting the churches. But I think there has been scripture to say that the people, but the people will essentially come out to these institutions known as the churches if they're corrupt and find God and find life in and among each other. And I don't know why people think that you need to be in a physical church. To praise the Lord, you can praise the Lord anywhere, anyhow. Watch your mouth or you will have to answer to Pastor Fred. Pastor Fred now would endorse my comment. Right? You're saying a merger of the state and the church. And some church pastors signing on to the government's agenda. But in the Bible, it speaks to the last days, it speaks to a merger of the church and the state. So these type of biblical events has to go according to the scripture. But you don't want to segue off into we're dealing with crime and the economics of the crime. Period, the church population has decreased. And just look at the amount of young people who voluntarily want to go to church. So there is a problem. I don't think it is because we have more churches. There is a problem there. Right? But we have some people here putting some very interesting comments in here. But I want to make the point to you because we're coming on to the end of the show that the motivating factor in here is that of wealth and money. And as long as you have money in society and you have inequality, then you will have criminal elements existing because of the nature of how humans are constructed. You will always have the real world in society. I always support reformation and reforming persons who would have found themselves on the wrong side of the law and having to reintegrate them back into society. And a prime example of that is Nelson Mandela. Though he might not have created a violent act, he may turn after serving in prison to become the president of South Africa. We have Paul Kagame, who was the president of Rwanda, general. He didn't go to jail, but he had to do some very brazen things, and he's the president of Rwanda, right? So I fully support reformation, but I also support means and ways to increase economic activity, uh, to increase economic activity, to invest more money in schools, to invest more money in the teaching world, to put more psychologists into the police force, and help to do intervention into the lives of people who commit criminal acts, as opposed to just treat them as outright criminals in a bid to monetize on this social waywardness. So as opposed to trying to have more lawyers and more police and more judges and more magistrates, which is the end cause of the problem, you should spend more money tackling the root cause of the problem. And that is to invest in families, invest in households, create more house to intervene. Right? So things more similar like the peace program. I'm not talking about the truth part, but I'm talking about the activity part. Re-engaging community, re-engaging the young people, re-educating them, trying to get a handle of those persons who are leaving school without qualifications and education, and trying to re-engage them in adequate work that can help them to self-actualize without having to go the road of human trafficking, drug trafficking, or firearms trafficking. I think Mandela was in prison for some type of political crime, I believe. Right? Rosie Douglas, Rosie Douglas, who was the president, I think, of Dominica, I believe. He was in prison. So we had leaders in the Caribbean, prime ministers in the Caribbean, who went to prison and still went on to do their society justice. So while I support the idea of harsh deterrence, I support this idea of heavy fines, I support this idea of long prison sentences for people who overdo and make themselves nuisances to society. Right? But I also want the government to invest heavily in preventative measures. Because if you invest heavy in prevention, then you slow down the amount of people who need to be reformed. Right? And when you slow down the people that amount of people that need to be reformed, then there are less people who have to face the harsh and heavy deterrence for the application of the law and the law courts and law enforcement and other ways. So tell me if you agree with me, right? Now tell me if you agree with me. We need to save our youth. We need to save our young men. And I am warning Barbados and Barbadians and all the other Caribbean countries that you need to move now and to stop the young women from taking up arms and joining the criminal element and focusing on the informal side. Because the female, and I heard Senator Ryan Walters making that point at a press conference that the females, we need to put a focus on the females because the females are joining in that area. Right? So Peter King is saying that I thought for before the evidence not to know violent crime that you mentioned. Well, before the evidence and before the information is a norm in society. Let me take some comments and then we're going to wrap up. But this conversation can go on. Look at this. Right. You got people who consume these scriptures, but to mean it to say what they want to say. But look, what that is saying, there's a new kind of church environment, no Kimar. Arts Lorette. Lorette Sunday School. Mandela was a mascot like our present one. Demons penetrate the defenses of many people through both emotional and physical and mental wounds, influencing them to permanency. So, Hurricane Writer, let me ask you this question. Do you agree with former Minister of Education of Barbados, Ronald Jones, in saying that the children have demons? Remember, Ronald Jones was saying that the children were impacted by demons, and he was cursed all around Barbados. So, do you agree that the spiritual element and the demons with Ronald Jones? There is the same condition that some police stations are deplorable, and that is the point I'm making. The police are treated so poorly in this country, right, that a program targeted directly at the police and how we can improve policing and improve the work conditions of police, improve the system for promotions, and to treat the police much better. We need a program like that in Barbados, policy like that. So you are correct, Galbez. Square 4 is saying we are still a Christian country. The leader let the witches and wizards come here and kept their conferences in Barbados and Queen's Park stage check. The Bible said that some leaders believe in witchcraft. Calvin Mackenzie is saying Mandela was a freedom fighter under apartheid South Africa. The only criminals were the oppressive white. Hurricane Writer is saying if the CM7 schools supply the prison population, then what are we really looking at in Barbados? Anything positive being done? But Jameer is saying it ain't going to work. These people forgot God, so all these things will come to pass. The preachers are liars. That is why the people leave the churches. We're saying the road to financial advancement and isolation could be long as salaries and wages don't suffice the cost of living. And that is the core of tonight's show. That self-actualization and financial advancement of the population of people who can get themselves involved in has to do with income, has to do with the performance in the economy, has to do with opportunity. That even if you leave school without qualifications, that there are still avenues for you to get adequate or proper work to earn income to self-actualize. Right? And again, we speak twofold. Even the persons who are educated who still gonna get themselves committed in crimes. Again, white collar crime, corruption, thefts of money, money laundering, those type of intellectual crimes are still crimes as well. And most people who engage in money laundering and those type of wealth-bearing exercises believe that their salaries were not enough for them to live an adequate life. So they engage in corruption to transcend the circumstances. So poverty plays a big role in crime. Wealth also plays a big role in crime. It goes to four. Pedro is saying the gender affairs deals with female only as if men should not be looked after. And this is another problem. The rise of feminism, the rise of feminism has led to division between men and women. Calvin Mackenzie is saying demons are a Christian concept based in mythology and superstition. Yabel is saying the demons' children allegedly come from adults who lead in the country. There is a demonization affecting the spiritual health of the population negatively. many situations and events in this country trigger anger. Nelson Mandela was in prison because he challenged the Buford with supremacist apartheid government. Right? A society is a true reflection of its governance. So away in the 50s where poverty was high, crime was low. There's a difference, Pedro, between what you call poverty and being poor. Right? There's a difference in my estimation between living in poverty and being poor. Right? What do you consider, Pedro, to be poor? Right? What do you consider to be poor? And what versus what do you consider to be living in poverty? Right? Before we had all of these material possessions, before we had a lot of these big houses, before we had a lot of these cars where most people were walking, and all of these fancy material things, we still had theft going on in the society, right? So even when we were living in as bushmen and bushwomen, and you go and cut a hand of bananas, and you were walking coming through the jungle with your bananas, and you probably killed one or two chickens or a pig or something, you taking it back to your little wood fire to roast, had to face the threat of another bushman knocking you out, taking your food, and taking your woman too, right? Let's call it primal nature. So we still had to deal with that. Right? So in those times, you still had crime going on when people were living in those times, right? Without the material stuff, still had theft going on, you still had rape going on, you still had murder going on. Maybe not as brazen as it was, right? But and you had all these cowboys on TV, right? You all watch Walker Texas Ranger shooting all over, pow pow pow, right? Guns and shooting, right? So we put it down now in the context of a modern society, right? So are people without material goods, right? You don't have a house, physical house, electricity, you don't have running water, right? Those are things that you would consider to be a necessity, but you also have to pay for them because they don't come free, right? So you gotta pay for them. When you were living in a state where you didn't have to pay for water, and you didn't have to pay for light, and you didn't have to pay for housing, and you didn't have to pay for transportation, you were living more free, more happy, right? And there was not a need to worry about the possession of these material goods as long as your basic necessities were met. You had basic shelter you didn't have to pay for. You had light, which is the sunlight you had to work with, so you know by dark you had to be done your business. And you had running water in streams, rivers, beaches, the natural God given water. Right? And you had shelter. You had your family, because families were much larger then, right? And you didn't have to concern yourself about paying all these bills and, and earning all of this money to be able to take. So with the implementation of new economic systems and the new capitalist system, the human being now wanted to have an increase in wealth. You wanted to have excess. You wanted to have things beyond his basic need. So that's the reason why you have to go up there and work, because you want the work to have the money and the resources to be able to provide beyond your necessity and your need. Right? So in those times, George, in the 50s, you had your basic needs met, right? As Spanish people live in huts with no lights, no water, and working was the norm, right? You didn't have to pay for the electricity, you didn't have to pay for the water, and you didn't have to pay for the housing. So that's money that you didn't have to spend, and people were much happier in those times. And as Pedro said, they didn't have the crime and the violence. So now those things have become monetized, which is your basic necessities, things that you need. You need electricity now. You need water now. You need housing now. You need transportation. But you have to be able to work to earn money to afford them. Right? So the person who engaged in the criminal activity, go there and do robbery or whatever, trying to satisfy that need of meeting necessities and also try to provide access for themselves using nefarious means, right? So the fact that people have more material stuff and the persons who may not have it may want it, so they will engage in the nefarious means to be able to get that access resource for themselves, right? So the more people have, the more people want, and the people who don't have will find means and ways to be able to get it if that involves robbing or taking from those who have it. So in those times when people were not so into the material stuff, right? Because you can live in poverty and not be poor, because poverty is a circumstance, and not be poor, because poor is a state of mind. You have a poor mentality, a poor mindset, a poor set of values, a poor set of action. So it will produce a body in both spirit and physical of being poor. But you can live in poverty, meaning meaning circumstances without electricity, without light, without basic necessities. That is poverty. But your mindset and your mentality is that of wealth and richness, liberty, life. And eventually, if you keep pushing on, then your mentality will win out, and then your physical circumstances will transform to that of your mental circumstances. So those people in Barbados who got free education, who went educate themselves, many judges, lawyers, bankers, financiers, people who came up to make something of themselves, people who were on blocks, who had hard lives, many a Barbadian who struggled in life, being victimized and abused in households, did not let that get them down or slow them down or stop them, because they always had a mentality of rich, wealth, progress. I have to make something of myself. I have to get through in life. I got to make it. And that mentality, along with worship of God and reading your Bible and singing prayers and your friends fortify and helping to push you, is what made many a Barbadian. But those persons who choose to live in a mental state of victimization, just check the personal circumstances, they're still in the same place that they were 30 years ago, 10 years ago. They're still there. They're still there. Same thing, same thing. Oh, the white man. Oh, the government. Oh, their mentality and the mindset were not there. So they need a transformation to bring the two into alignment. And Barbados is the perfect example for persons looking on, right? And keeping that resilience of the mind, that although you live in circumstances of poverty, you don't have the infrastructure or whatever, your mentality is still very much intact. But there goes the end of alternative views today. Thank you very much. We are going for 2 hours and 39 minutes. We don't go past 2 hours and 40 minutes. And we're going to keep discipline. We're going to keep discipline. So thank you very much for tuning in to Alternate Views. The comments are full tonight, right? The comments are full tonight, so I had a very good discussion. Mr. Angel, Hurricane Writer, Pedro, Pete Weir, Gal Biz. Alright, Gal Biz, I should say something before I go. You just said it right. I want to disavow people of the mind. I want to disavow people of the mindset and the mentality that you have to engage in corruption, that you have to be involved in drugs, you have to be involved in guns, that you have to be involved in fraud or any nefarious activity to gain wealth on this earth. You do not. You do not. There's some very above the board activities that you can use to as your vehicle for wealth and to gain earning potential. We just need proper guidance. We just need proper structure. I need programs. Those persons who have the information and who know better, who can help, and who have the money and the resources, start a program and help to give back to the country. Don't just talk it. Give back to the country and help to save a young person and save the future of this country. This tonight's message was going up there and a message to save the young people of Barbados, a message to save the youth. Youth are in trouble, and crime and violence is taking over our society, taking over our young black boys in Barbados, and we need corrective action. So, whatever resources that we can to deploy the root cause, which is the psychological aspects and the psychosocial aspects, we invest money there, we can see a turnaround and bring an end to these guns and violence, right? And I keep saying last point, but this thing got me hot tonight. Right? In a society where people have this affinity for guns and stuff, I always say we were once a society where young people were into revolution, where young people were into upliftment. And we had in the 1930s a set of riots through this Caribbean. And I want to remind the young people that you were once the progressive backbones of societies, the foundations, the freedom fighters, and as opposed to killing each other to the joys of the oppressor who wants to see black people depopulated, and you are doing them favors by killing out one another. Right? Funerals are big business in Barbados. A funeral costs close to $10,000 for one here. $10,000. So you see the amount of funerals that are going on in Barbados. The funeral homes are becoming wealthy because of the increases of murders and violence. So continue on thinking that you're doing something when you're really not doing anything well, and get on a more positive note, right? And to recognize that the society of Barbados is impacted by the economics of crime and violence, and we need to find a way to bring corrective action back to that. So thank you guys very much. I am out of here. I will see you next week, Thursday, on Alternate Views. I had a very good discussion tonight. Good night to you. Good night, Nigel Franklin. I see you in the comments. Timmy, Gail Biz, Annette Wood, and all of the earlier patrons. Uh, good night to you. Good night, all.